Hi guys. Hello guys. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's live Q&A. If you have questions, make sure you comment uh, d- wherever you are joining us from, either Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, or Instagram or Facebook. Leave your comments. I'll try to get to those comments by the end of the day. We have some questions that were submitted to us already, and I will be answering them before the other ones. Okay, we'll try to get through all the questions submitted in the 30 minutes that we have today. But let's talk about some of the updates before we go any further. So, end of flag polling. So, there were regulations that were announced in Gazette yesterday that confirms that the regulations are already in place, and the minister will be making the related announcements very soon. For instance, who's not going to be able to flagpole, and if they're going to come up with any alternative options for people who want to get the work permit the same day, because a lot of truck drivers are going to be impacted because they often rely on flagpoling to get the work permit the same day. So this week there might be an announcement, or the next week, but that remains to be seen what happens on that front. So the next one is end of 50 points express entry applications to. So I wanted to make this clear that as of yesterday, if you are eligible for those 50 points, you are getting them. They have announced that they'll be doing away with this, but they have not implemented this in the express entry system. So if you are eligible for them, you should claim them, create your express entry, and if you get invitation with those 50 points, I recommend that you guys submit your applications immediately, uh, and then see what happens, because there's no clarity about this. And as long as your application is submitted, not the profile, but the actual application is submitted to the IRCC before these rules take effect, I think you will be fine. There will be no retroactive cancellations of the applications already submitted. Okay. This question was submitted through Instagram. What documents are required for the extension of the work permit for a common law partner? Very simple: proof of genuine relationship, and the work permit of the spouse, who's the primary applicant, and evidence of their employment in tier 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Even if they're working part-time, they can still request a open work permit for their spouse. So those are the documents. For details, you can refer to the IRCC website or try creating your document checklist by going Come to Canada tool. This was a question submitted last week. I was not able to get to it. Options in Manitoba for those who studied in Ontario. The most obvious one is skilled worker in Manitoba, but there is also going to be rural community pilot, and there was RNIP. A lot of people went to Brandon for looking for RNIP. Some of them got it, and so those are the only two options you have. It's important to remember that you do lose 200 points for studying and working in Ontario, even if you have worked while you were a study permit holder. And you guys might be surprised by this. Even if you have worked as part of your studies, like for a co-op, you still lose 100 points. So be very careful when you're considering moving to Manitoba. Make sure you weigh the pros and cons and know the details of the process. So this is, I submitted information on portal 2. Now can I travel outside Canada? Yes, the answer to that question is yes. As long as you have submitted the photo and address, and you declared in the online system that you are in Canada, when you are in Canada, there's no legal requirement, as far as I know, to inform the IRCC that you're traveling outside Canada. So let's talk about a hypothetical scenario. You get a portal to request, you have to upload your photo, declare your address in Canada, and after that you have to go to India or any other country. For many reasons people have to travel. Let's say you go there and then you get a COPR while you're outside Canada. Then what are your options? Well, you will have to apply for a PRTD declaring that you were outside Canada when your COPR was issued, and there will be no problem at all. We have had a lot of clients who had to travel. Either their travels were pre-planned or out of an emergency. Every one of them got their PRTD approved, but make sure you're being truthful in your application. And yes, circumstances change. IRCC is aware of that, and they try to be as facilitative as the law allows them to be. So if you have submitted information on P2, you can travel outside Canada, but it might impact your ability to come back depending on what happens while you're outside Canada. Mother's visa expires when her passport expires in February 2025. How can she stay longer in Canada beyond 2025? Okay, so I assume that their question is their visa and passport is expiring in February of 2025. How can this person's mother stay longer in Canada beyond February 2025? So make sure before you guys enter Canada, you have a new passport, because that will allow her to stay here for 180 days after her entry. So make sure you get a new passport before you travel to Canada, and the old passport has to be carried with the new one because it's the old passport that has that visa. So it's that visa that will allow her to board the flight and then enter into Canada. And once she's in Canada, she can stay for up to 180 days, or depending, her entry might be shorter or longer, depending on what the border officer writes on the passport. If they don't write anything, then she can stay here for 183 days. That is 6 months. And that is the normal duration for normal visitor visa holders. Submitted a dummy application for work permit. Can I get work experience and use it for CEC and MPNP? The answer is yes, because this work experience is going to be authorized as per the IRPA. So when you submit any application for extension, not just the dummy application, the work experience you accumulate during maintained status as a worker in Canada is eligible for MPNP, Nova Scotia PNP, and also for Canadian Experience Class. So if your work permit is expiring, make sure you have an individual session with a authorized representative, consultant, or a lawyer who tries to work in your best interest, because this has helped a lot of our clients. I'll be sharing a story later on where somebody's work permit was expiring in May. And on the parallel, we had received an letter of advice to apply for MPNP. And if I followed the advice that is generally given, that you should not submit a dummy application, the person would have been out of status. Actually, MPNP themselves have been asking people just to submit an extension so they can work in Canada under Section 186U while their application is being processed. So slightly controversial topic. A lot of lawyers and consultants online are saying that people should either go out of status or convert into a visitor. I take the approach depending on what the situation of the client is. Some people just don't want to take any risk. That is totally fine. But in some cases, calculated risk taking has led to positive outcomes, and there has not been any negative backlash from IRCC, so to speak. Like nobody was banned for misrepresentation or for submitting dummy applications. So we'll be talking about this later. What will happen to the PR stream LMI application in process this time? We don't know. We have some in process from March and April. And we are waiting for them, and waiting is all we can do at this point. So when the new regulations or rules come into effect, ESDC might take some action, like cancel the applications, or they can still approve them, because ESDC and IRCC are two separate departments. They have to follow their own rules and laws. So, what will happen to the PR stream LMIN process at this time? Apologies. Nobody knows. We'll just have to wait it out. I got an ITA where in CEC I claimed points for arranged offer of employment with the. Okay, if you have gotten an ETA already, I recommend submitting that application as soon as possible, because once the application is submitted, so far, as per the Canadian rules, they have to be processed based on what the rules were in effect when the application was submitted. Okay, let's say, so in this case, I recommend just submitting your CCPR application, despite what the updates have been from the IRCC or the minister, because those rules are not yet in effect. Okay, so right now, as of today, if you have received an ITA based from CC or any other stream like FSW, where you claimed 50 points for arranged employment, I recommend that you go ahead and submit the application. Okay, MPNP application, proof of funds. Do I need to have a minimum of 10K proof of funds for the MPNP application? Big misconception. A lot of people spend a lot of time gathering these funds. You do not need it if you are working in Manitoba and you submit skilled worker in Manitoba. Okay, skilled worker outside Manitoba, outside Canada, is a completely different stream. For that, you must have funds. But if you are submitting or have submitted a skilled worker in Manitoba application, then you do not need proof of funds. You might be surprised by this. So let's say you have submitted a skilled worker in Manitoba application, and for some reason you've had to stop working, either layoff, termination, or expiry of your status. MPNP has been kind enough to still process the application based on what the information they had when the application was submitted. So they are not demanding proof of funds. They're very lenient with people who are inside Canada, submitted skilled worker in Manitoba applications. So the short answer is you do not need proof of funds for MPNP applications submitted in skilled worker in Manitoba categories. The outside category, yes. So I'm out of status in Canada and it's applied for restoration. How much money do I need to submit? Do I need to submit the PR application? So this was a big surprise. You only need 12.5% of the LICO cutoff. Okay, you do not need $15,000. It's about $3,500 to $4,000. This because it's a job offer based stream. So the province has already vetted your job offer. That's the basis of your PR. So the endorsement was given by the province, and now you can go ahead and submit the application, even if you're out of status in Canada, like within the restoration window, obviously, and you have submitted a restoration application. You can submit your PR application with about 3,500 to 4,000. Make sure you check the website. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, but it's between 3,500 to 4,000. So very big surprise, because generally the misconception is you need about 15,000 in settlement funds, but in this category you need between 3,500 to 4,000. Proof of funds for PR application under PNP category, federal state. Okay, another good one. So PNP, provincial nomination. So that once you are given a nomination by the province takes the responsibility that they have determined that you are very likely to succeed in establishing in that province. Okay, so if you look at the PNP based PRs document checklist, there is absolutely no mention of proof of funds, and that might come as a surprise to a lot of people on the first look, but it should not be, because province is responsible for determining whether people are eligible, whether people are likely to succeed in establishing in that certain province. So there is no proof of funds. Let's say you submit a PR application, you go out of status and have submitted for restoration. Can the IRCC request that you provide them with proof of settlement funds? The answer is no. And the reason is because of the provincial and federal agreement between the provinces and the federal government. The provinces have the responsibility of doing the the uh, the assessment whether somebody is likely to be financially established in that province based on the skills, education, and language requirement. And the federal government is primarily responsible for the inadmissibility, okay, like security, criminality, and other things. So if you have submitted a PR application under PNP category and you've lost your job or out of status, do not worry about the proof of funds. They will, however, on the other side, IRCC can ask you to provide your bank statements to show how you have been living here. That has happened to a few people. So people go out of status, then how are they living in Canada? How are they supporting themselves? So make sure you don't do anything that you're not supposed to do. There were some reports of people doing Uber when they were not supposed to work in Canada. Those people were caught. They faced removal orders in Canada. I don't recommend doing any of those things. And importantly, make sure you get some sort of legal advice if you run into those problems. Like if you're out of status, do not rely on advice from friends. While they might mean well, they probably do not know the details of the process and how you can be caught in some situations. Okay, so case law discussion. Officer ignores the evidence, gets exasperated. 1 second. One second. So we'll talk about this case law where the judge really got annoyed with IRCC. Okay, you can see here connecting the officer decision before me fails to meet even the basic threshold. So this is very serious wording. Okay, in 4 sentences with the profound relying on an undisclosed and unexplained verification process. So let's go through this case law, the decision together, and see what had happened. So bachelor's degree. So the applicant applied for a study permit. Okay, and here the concern of the officer was regarding the financial documents submitted by the applicant in support of his study permit application. So the officer said submitted is not genuine. Okay, the bank statement issued by this bank, how you obtained this document, and why it was supported in this application. The applicant replied quickly within 6 days. So that the bank statement was that of his brother. Submitted in support of Mr. is willing to finance and sponsor my education in Cape Breton University, Canada. I've added an update of his current balance to clear any doubts of ingenuity. So very basic, right? You would assume that that this would allay the concerns of the officer. And there you go, which bore both an official stamp and there you go, right? So all ends covered, one would imagine. There you go. Officer denied the application. Okay, found her inadmissible for 5 years due to misrepresentation under paragraph 41A of the IRPA. This is the 4 sentences that the judge referred to in his opening paragraph. Let's read it together. So the officer goes on to say, I give very limited weight to the documents provided in response to the PFL. I note similarities between the submitted and the one provided. Okay, yes. Inconsistency in the information provided in the document. No mention of what exactly that inconsistency is. Okay. This negatively affects the weight given to the document in support of the response to the PFL, which is procedural fairness letter. In my assessment, I give more weight to the information obtained through the verification process from a reliable source of information and who's not an interest. So you can see here, right? So procedural fairness requires the officer to at least disclose. So basically, it could have been made up that he did a verification. I don't want to use that word, but it seems like that because officer is saying he used his own reliable sources. But what are those sources? The procedural fairness, as per the Canadian laws, they require the officers to disclose these things. Okay, this is the entirety of the GCMS notes. I don't know why the Attorney General let it go to the court. They could have settled this out of the court and avoided the ire of the judge. You can see here, with the meager reasoning, the officer arrived at a finding that a serious impact of the applicant, barring her from Canada for 5 years and impugning her character. Very strong language. While the length of reasons alone is not determinative, this decision bears strong mark of unreasonable administrative decision making. Very strong language. So, to get into the technicalities, and then in the conclusion section, I love this. IRCC is always saying we have too much work, so we can't look at everything. But the judge is saying, at least do not play with the lives of people. Like you're saying you verified them. You're not telling them how you verified them, but what methods were used. And then the officer goes on to like slap a ban of 5 years on the applicant and completely ignores the submissions made by them. Good for the applicant for taking it to the court and saving herself from a 5 year ban. But let's say paragraph 16, deference to their expertise command, such consideration cannot be employed to a bootstrap decision completely devoid of any meaningful analysis, fails to demonstrate the rational chain of analysis that forms the bedrock of a reasonable administrative decision making. This is the landmark court case that sets the standard for administrative decision maker. There you go. And this Ali Eshnashari, this guy was actually my instructor when I studied at Humber, and this is his law firm. If somebody else faces the similar situation, they can reach out to them. I have no affiliation with them. I just recognize this name because he was my professor at the Humber when I did my certification program. So that is the end of the discussion of this court case. Give me a moment. I'm just going to we'll discuss 1 second. We'll discuss a success story where somebody's work permit was expiring in May. However, before the expiry of the work permit, the client got an invitation to apply for a MPNP application under skilled worker in Manitoba stream. So I made that decision to submit her open work permit application, include a note of explanation. And that application, believe it or not, is still in process. So it's about 7 months. On the side, the client got PNP approved through express entry, and we submitted an application for PR through express entry. And this client is now eligible for bridging open work permit because IRCC updated their rules recently, and I will be showing those to you very shortly. Okay, so this is very critical when you are making a decision of whether going out of status or submitting an application. A lot of people argue that it's unethical to do. I don't think so. I think clients' individual circumstances need to be taken into consideration, either by yourself or if you are working with a representative, they should make an informed decision. Obviously, don't do anything illegal because that's not what we are here for. We are trying to help as many people legally. Okay. And one, give me a moment. I'll be pulling up something. I'll have to stop the camera for a bit. We'll be right back. Hi guys. Hey guys, thank you for waiting. So I'll be sharing this one thing with you guys. Okay, one second. So who can apply for bridging open work permit, right? To be eligible, this is IRCC website. Let's say you apply for permanent residence through express entry or non-express entry, because bridging open work permit helps a lot of people. So permanent resident, this, who can apply for BOWP? Let's look into the details. Live in Canada, that's fine. You can leave Canada while we process it. However, if you leave Canada, your work permit expires. Pretty simple. Must. Let's look at it. Either have a valid work permit when you submit, have an expired work permit, but maintained your status as a worker. So tell me, how can you do that if you have converted into a visitor and you did not submit a dummy application? Because in some cases, people do get 6 to 8 months on maintained status where they can work, make money, accumulate the work experience towards their PR. And in some cases, those people are benefited by the public policy, like the one recently announced by Manitoba. And so it's a very controversial topic for some people, whether they should maintain their status in Canada or not if their work permit is expiring. But I always take the approach of do everything you can for your clients. And I'll be very quickly sharing something with you guys. So here, so we submitted an application on May 10th. Okay, and today is what, December 21st, and this client is still working in Manitoba. In the parallel, we have received a PNP. Okay, we have submitted the PR application. Okay, now we have added that information via web form to the existing application that, look here, maintained her status. Now, as per this update, she's eligible for BOWP. Okay, so be very careful when you're thinking of letting yourself go out of status. Think twice. That's one success story I wanted to share, because a lot of people are in the boat where their work permits are expiring, but in the parallel they might have a PR application, PNP application, or in some cases genuine people are genuinely getting married. So those application those marriages can also help. So be very careful when you're thinking about letting your status expire or going out of status, because this uh, can have big impact on your PR application and your ability to stay in Canada. So with that, we come to the conclusion of today's live stream. Oh, 1 second. There are some questions. After 12th, so I'm assuming this person has a, this is on Twitter. So this person has a LMIA based work permit. The answer is likely yes, based on the skill trades, because there are a lot of people who get invited in the skill trades as a welder. Or this person can actually directly create an express entry profile after 1 year. Their score will be very low because of their great wealth. However, they can improve their score by having decent CLB in their language exams, or if they have siblings or any other relative in Ontario or in any other province. So, a lot of moving parts in that question, but the short answer is yes. And the person should also consider creating an express entry profile. So, this was a question submitted while we were talking. There are some others on Instagram. Some people just saying hello. Possibility. What is the best pathway? Something. Okay. With that, we'll conclude today's live stream. We'll join you guys again on Wednesday or Tuesday, because Wednesday is Christmas. So we'll try to do it on Tuesday. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy sharing what we have learned this week. And if you guys want your questions answered, you can use that Google form that I post link to when we are announcing these things. So I look forward to seeing you again on Tuesday or Thursday. Merry Christmas, everyone, and have a good weekend. Take care.